It's still Breakfast Daily on City TV. Thank you so much for staying with us. And it's still our Heritage Month right here on Breakfast Daily. All month long, we'll be bringing you conversations around our history, our culture, our heritage, everything that makes us authentically Ghanaian. One of the problems we are battling with as a country is malnutrition. 19% of Ghanaians suffer from chronic malnutrition. So today on the health segment, we're going to be talking about malnutrition in Ghana, what we need to know and how to ensure that we prevent ourselves and our children from being malnourished. If you have any questions or contributions to the conversation, please let us know. The hashtag to use is Breakfast Daily. And our WhatsApp line is 0550-585832. You can also tweet at me at Jifa City TV. We need to prioritize our health, especially now that we're dealing with a pandemic. And of course, every Tuesday, we have Dr. Kelvin Owusu, who's the medical director of Optima Care Diagnostics with us. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Jifa. It's been a long while.
I know. I hope you've missed me.
Yes, I have, actually.
I've missed you too.
Good.
Well, yesterday we celebrated International Women's Day.
We did.
What are some of the things that stands out for you, especially when you talk about women?
Well, I mean, women, they make the world go round in every respect, in every aspect. I mean, even with the topic we're going to discuss, you realize that women play a pivotal role when it comes to nutrition. And so we are all alive. Literally, I'm even talking about the fact that they gave birth to us and all that. Literally, we are alive because of women. Because, typically for us in the cultural setting, a woman takes care of us. You know, even if your mother is not there, it's your grandmother. If your grandmother is not there, it's your auntie, whoever. It's always women who play the pivotal role of keeping us going. And so we are really, really proud that they are the backbone to our society.
Now let's talk about malnutrition. What is malnutrition?
Well, I mean, I think you see, when it comes to medicine, a lot of things are confusing, but malnutrition is not confusing at all because it just simply says poor nutrition. Yeah. You see, but then the mistake a lot of us make is that when we mention malnutrition, we always assume the other side where the children are hungry and they are, thin and they
have
bone. Yes, but malnutrition encompasses everything from undernutrition as well as overnutrition. So, yes, so in the last episode, we spoke about obesity. Yeah. So that's the consequence of overnutrition, and that is a form of malnutrition as well.
Okay, so let's start with children. What are some of the causes of malnutrition in children?
Well, I think the most common cause of malnutrition, as I already said, is poor diet. Yeah. Unfortunately, many of us focus so much on filling the stomach, how do I put it?
Feeling full.
Yes, of putting food in the stomach, removing the sensation of hunger. That's what a lot of us focus on. You see, but when it comes to nutrition is not just about removing hunger. Because you might be giving the child food. The child may actually be full with food. But what is the quality of that food? Is the child actually getting the nutrition, the nutrients that he or she needs to actually grow well? And if the answer is no, which is usually the case, then that child could suffer from malnutrition. And you already gave the statistics of those who are chronically malnourished, but it's actually a bigger problem. Close to 50% of children are actually undernourished.
Wow.
You see, and that's a major, major problem because malnutrition, the complication of malnutrition, it goes all the way into adulthood. Yeah. In fact, and this is serious, 5.5, it's estimated that 5.5 million adults currently were malnourished as children.
You're kidding.
Yes, I'm serious. I'm talking about Ghanaians. This is Ghanaians. So if 5.5 million adults today were malnourished in the past as children, that's a big problem because if you take the population of children, and we know that unfortunately some of them will die because we have a high under 5 mortality, we have a high infant mortality. So after all these numbers have been eliminated through other illnesses, and you still have that chunk, 5.5 million, reaching adulthood with a history of poor nutrition. It's a problem because it affects a lot of aspects of their development, particularly our cognition, our brain function. And so oftentimes parents put children under pressure. You're not performing well in school, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, when indeed the issue is that the child is not well nourished. So even if you put that child in the best of schools with the best of teaching aids, that child could not perform because the brain has lost something from the malnutrition it suffered in the past.
It's crazy.
What
are some of the signs and symptoms?
Even before we get to signs and symptoms, there's a research actually from 2017 which is saying that some of our economic problems we are having as a country, this is Ghana specific, is because we have that size of the population who experience malnutrition as children.
How do we tie that in? Because people also say that malnutrition could be the outcome of poverty. So if someone does not make enough,
so it's kind of a cycle. Yes, an unending cycle. So poverty begets malnutrition. Yeah. Malnutrition begets more poverty, which then goes on to beget more malnutrition. And so it's a cycle that somebody or some people have to actively break. Because if you don't do that, the problem is going to stay and it's going to be compounded. You see, because yes.
So as we're talking about our national development, as we're talking about our Heritage Month, we need to prioritize, feeding ourselves well. A well-nourished population.
In fact, it should be our number one priority. Honestly, it should be our number one priority. And you see, let me get into a bit of controversy. You see, our school feeding program focuses on primary schools. So from 6 years and above, they get, as we've been saying, one hot meal a day, which is a good thing. It's definitely going to solve a problem. But unfortunately, it's a bit too late. Yes, because from the time of conception till the age of 2. That is the most critical period for brain development. Okay. So any intervention that happens after 2 years or at best after 5 years is not going to change much because the damage has become permanent, for lack of a better expression. Wow. So the interventions when it comes to malnutrition needs to happen whilst the baby is now developing till as early as 2 years. We should be intervening at that point. Or if you are going to stretch it by 5, there should have been some intervention if we want to make a difference.
So let's talk about children this week, and maybe if we have time, we'll look into adults another time. So what are some of the signs and symptoms that this child is malnourished? When we were kids, we only knew the kwashiorkor kids.
Oh, that's a bit of a late sign, actually.
Oh, yeah. Yes, now it's too visible.
Exactly. So most of the time, you see, and the technical term for some kwashiorkor, marasmus, all those things is protein energy malnutrition. Okay. So emphasis on energy, protein. Now, proteins help the body to, they are called the bodybuilding foods, as we remember from way back in primary school. So because the protein is broken down to amino acids, which your body will now use to build muscle, tissue, all those things. So if you don't have enough protein in your body, you are going to lack muscle development. Okay. So you are going to see that this child is not growing as he or she should be growing. Yeah. If the person is lacking energy foods, the child is going to be lethargic, going to be weak, will do small work, and then is complaining of being tired and all that. So these are some of the early signs. So tiredness or easy fatigue is a very common sign in children who are malnourished. They are slow in school. They report in school as early as first lecture. They are already feeling sleepy. They are nodding off in class. That's a sign. Somebody should pay attention to that child. Okay. As it progresses, you might start seeing discoloration of the hair, or even the nails. You might notice some of these things. The skin will be wrinkling. These are signs that so if you saw a child with wrinkled, dry skin, you might not just want to tease that child because they will say that you look like an old lady or old man. That child might be suffering from malnutrition. So we need to pay attention to that baby or that kid. It's very important.
Okay. And how do we fix it?
The fixing of malnutrition starts with the mother. Okay. So it's just as well that we are also celebrating an International Women's Day or Women's Month, because women play a major role in this discussion of nutrition. Okay. And it starts with the woman herself being well nourished. Because when you are pregnant and when the baby that's developing inside your uterus or your womb is going to take whatever you have. It's going to feed on your stores as a woman. So if you don't have adequate stores of nutrients or nutrition, then it means that from the get-go that baby is already going to struggle. So if you don't have enough build-up of fat or proteins, energy, all these things are lacking, it's a problem. And this is why antenatal care is very important, because there are interventions that can be put in place to help you, the woman, to sort of have good nutrition. Of course, it also comes down to the money issue, because when you go home, you have to be able to, follow the advice that has been given. Unfortunately, our culture also doesn't help, especially as going to the rural areas, because the foods that are rich in some of these nutrients, proteins,
there's some superstition attached to them.
There are taboos attached to them. Yeah. So eggs, for instance, snails. these are foods that are rich in protein, rich in other nutrients as well. But unfortunately, the culture does not allow them to participate or partake, and it's a problem. Fish, a very rich source of protein. Iron, very, very much needed because the average Ghanaian woman walking the streets of Ghana is anemic. And it's a problem.
I'm anemic.
You see.
Why is that?
Because of the monthly loss of blood that women go through. They tend to lose a lot of iron through that process. And I'm talking about the menstrual cycle. And so you need to, if you are in the reproductive age, that's between 15 all the way up to 45, sometimes pushing to 48, you need to be actively replacing your iron stores so that by the time you are pregnant, you have adequate iron stores. Because if you're already anemic, and I'm sure one day we'll talk about pregnancy, because the whole process of being pregnant, there's a dilutional effect of pregnancy. So if you're already anemic and you become pregnant, your anemia is going to be more pronounced, which then means that the kid is going to suffer suffer more because your blood level has sort of dropped because of the pregnancy process. And so this child now is born already underweight, which is the case in a lot of Ghanaian children. They are born underweight. Then, thankfully, breast milk, regardless of, and this is an interesting thing, regardless of how poorly nourished the mother is, the body preserves the breast milk. Wow. So breast milk remains pretty much adequate in terms of nourishing the newborn baby. Okay. Regardless of the mother's nutritional status. So whether the mother herself is poorly nourished or whatever, the breast milk is adequate for that baby. Okay, so you can pass your malnutrition on to your child. Through breast milk. And so and this is why exclusive breastfeeding is critical. Okay. In addressing this malnutrition issue. And so if mothers are going to practice exclusive breastfeeding, the baby there's something called catch-up growth. Okay. Will in the first 6 months try as much as possible to catch up with whatever he or she may have missed in utero, in the womb. And so that's why exclusive breastfeeding it cannot be overemphasized. Okay. We have to promote that with everything that we've got. But then the next challenge now comes after 6 months when we start introducing other foods in there. That's my next question, because then it's like we almost give the child a lot of carbs. Talking about mori cocoa, then they pump in milk. Sakura. You get me? How bad is that? So, you see, the mori cocoa itself is not the problem. What are you adding to the mori cocoa? Because mori cocoa is just corn, which is just carbohydrates, like you mentioned. So the child gets a lot of. In fact, the children get too much carbohydrate, too much calories. And not enough of the other things. There's no protein in there. There's no fat in there. There are no vitamins in there. So that child is loaded with carbohydrates and he's full. So what should we add to it? Like, let's say there's a new mother watching us, and this is irrespective of your income or your economic financial status. Are there things that we can add, especially now that we're talking about Heritage Month, like a little bit of moringa, a little bit of neem, if you can't afford all the expensive foreign things? You see, but the thing is, in truth, solving malnutrition, and that's why there's a bit of a divide. It's not entirely a poverty issue, it's a lack of knowledge issue. Because it's not expensive to provide the missing ingredients. Something like fish, what they call dried fish, amani, or the fish they use for shito. I've forgotten the name right now. Yeah, the shrimp, the dried shrimp. They use amani as well for shito here. It's not that expensive. You can actually dry the fish, grind it, and add it to the cocoa. And interestingly, a baby protein right there. It has the protein right there. Okay. And a baby does not really care how the food tastes because the baby knows no better. But I also heard babies eat with their eyes, so the presentation must be good. The presentation is good. Must be good. All right, yes. But then you are giving the child cocoa. If you mix the powdered fish in the cocoa, the presentation it will not change the presentation in any way. Okay. You can add soy. Soya milk is also a very good source of protein and also has some antioxidants in there as well. You can even add, and there's a popular one. Professor Kosa has been preaching for a long time. Beans. He says that you just go and get a long of beans. Again, not expensive. And every morning you cook some of that beans. You grind it up. I mean, you in an earthenware pot. And whatever you give that child that day, add some other beans to it. And then you're fine. And that will give the child enough protein. You see, and so once we know some of these things, then we can add it to the food. Especially after that 6 months period, it helps the child to get enough nutrition through for to sustain their growth, you know. And as the child grows, other foods can be introduced. But remember that every food that you are giving that child must have a component of all the other food groups. The protein is the one that's always missing because we don't think it's serving any purpose. So even when the child starts eating bangkun, it's just a big ball of bangkun, no protein.
How do we change that in our households? Because in the average household, and I'm not saying everyone, the man of the house will get all the protein. The one person who probably does not need the protein will get it all, and the kids will just have the chicken leg and the bones on their meals.
This is why we have to be a bit smart. I mean, I don't think even if that culture pertains in that house where the man must get the biggest meat, no man will fight over powdered fish.
True.
You see, so we have to find ways and means of making the children's food such that it's not even in competition with the general house food, so that even if that culture pertains, the children are sort of protected.
Okay.
It's because that's how it's supposed to be. The children didn't ask to be born, so once you have decided to bring them forth, that you must find a way to sustain them. Because you see, the issue would be that if that child does not get the nutrition they need, they will continue to remain a burden on you and now eventually onto the general society. So you as the parent must make sure that child is reliant in the sense that the brain is developing properly so that they can actually go to school and perform in school, and then, you know, have a bright future ahead of them. And even as a state, we need to put measures in place to ensure that these children are getting at least an egg a day.
Okay.
I mean, an egg a day for every child can actually put this malnutrition discussion away. It can actually solve this problem.
Wow.
But of course, on the other side of the malnutrition is where the middle income to high income areas are now struggling with childhood obesity.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that both of these things, so the childhood obesity and the malnutrition, both have long-term complications. Eventually, all of them can end up developing diabetes, hypertension, and other chronic diseases as a result of their experiences as children.
We're going to look at both next week, because anytime we talk about malnutrition, we're thinking about the very, very poor people, but there are lots of rich people whose kids are also not well nourished that we need to discuss. Dr. Kelvin Owusu, thank you so much for being with us. Where do we follow you on social media?
You can find me at Kelvin Owusu MD on all social media channels.
No more than staple.
No.
Thank you for being with us. I think you are home for staying. So, of course, we need to invest in the well-being of our children. Okay, if not, we'll pay the price. We don't want adults who are suffering from anemia, suffering from migraines, can't even concentrate in school, let alone perform well at work. And it starts with the kinds of things we put in the bodies of our children. We'll continue this conversation next week. We'll compare, obese children with kids who are severely malnourished and what we need to do to make sure that they are all well equipped to be productive members of society. Hi there. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends.
This is Breakfast Daily on City TV.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Join us for breakfast daily, only on City TV.